Chapter 71, Chosen. Translator. 549,690,339. Capable of going up, capable of descending. This phrase emerged involuntary in Han Yi's mind. Then, he remembered a conversation he had a few years ago with the sect leader Yuan Shun when they stumbled upon a spy from the Blood God sect. At the end of the conversation, Yuan Shun mentioned that bigger challenges were coming, which probably included the new policies that are being implemented now. Han Yi redirected his thoughts to ponder about the new policies. He also came to a summarization of the two new policies targeted at inner peak disciples. The first one, described in 3 words, move outward. The second one, again in 3 words, roll up. The first stop of moving upward is the Evil Mountain Range. The Evil Mountain Range is not within the territory of Dakion Immortal Country, spanning long and winding from the northwest extreme, extending southeastwards to the shore of the Eastern Sea. Dakion Immortal Country borders the southwest side of the mountain range, while on the other side is the top power in the immortality realm, the Dakion Immortal Country. The reason it is called the Evil Mountain Range is due to the alliance between Xuanden sect and Yuan Beast sect growing closer over the years. Yuan Beast sect is located in Luofeng Country and Huaibei County. From their sect, heading northeastwards leads to the Evil Mountain Range. Disciples of the Xuanden sect can enter the Evil Mountain Range passing through the realm of Yuan Beast sect. Furthermore, in the new policy announced by the sect, there is a requirement. Within half a year, they must go to the Evil Mountain Range and kill an evil beast of equal stage to oneself. In this so-called half-year period, they've split it further through a name list system. The sect has categorized the inner peak disciples into 3 groups. Every 2 months a new group is formed. The list for each group will be published soon, and starting from the announcement date, if one is unable to complete the task within half a year, it will be considered a failed assignment. This time, there would be no comeback matches. This also prevents certain disciples from wasting time, delaying until the last half year to proceed. In short, if you were sent, you had to go. Not going wasn't an option. That was move outward. And this time, Xuanden sect disciples had to take actions beyond the sect for the real first time. Unlike in the past, such as cave heaven trials or joint contest schedules, there will be no protection from the sect. This time was different. And this indirectly proved that Xuanden sect was making ample preparations, preparing for the disciples to leave their comfort zone after these years of training. Whether you turn you're a wolf or a sheep, would be decided this time. There will definitely be casualties, and quite a few. But it's an inevitable choice the sect must make. Only those who have survived the blaze of fire would form the future backbone of the sect. The second policy, with an obvious intent, is roll up. Internal rumpling forced the relatively complacent inner peak disciples to stand out. Those who stood out were given more resources so they could become stronger, while those who've been simply getting by might even turn back to outer peak. Before this, Han Yi had to admire the strategy of the upper sect when he heard these 2 policies. From paying a huge price to purchase quotas from Yujing Mountain to carry out cave heaven trials, to internal and external peak contests in the sect, giving out generous rewards, to the joint big competition with the Yuan Beast sect. And finally, the new policy was put in place, move outward, roll up. That was what he meant by revolution. This series of actions, one linking to another, not aimless, with every link having a strong purpose. From these frequent actions, the resolve of Xuanden sect can also be seen, which underscores the harsh external environment. As for the external environment of the Xuanden sect, the Blood God sect stood out. 20 years on, and already 4 have passed. To a high-ranking cultivator, 20 years would flash by in a blink of an eye. Xuanden sect didn't have much time left. Han Yi couldn't help but bring to mind a lasering phrase, but for him within the Xuanden sect, it carried a heavy pressure. A wind-full pavilion before the mountain rain. This phrase was applicable to every disciple of the Xuanden sect. Junior brother Han, if we end up in the same group, we should go together. It would be good to have someone to rely on. Yan Ru said softly. After entering the inner peak, she received the same cultivation resources as other inner peak disciples. 2 years ago, she advanced to the 7th level of Qi training and had settled into the inner peak. Her face was still cold, emotionless. To those who were unfamiliar with her, they'd think she was indifferent. But those who knew her, like Han Yi, knew that this was just her nature and not deliberate aloofness. Han Yi nodded. All right. One of the implied demands in this new policy was to let disciples go on this journey in groups, to help each other. Han Yi had thought about going alone, but if he was with familiar companions, it would be better than facing any accident alone. One also hoped to be in the same group as junior brother Han. Luo Yunzhou also said with a smile. Chi Hong was slightly surprised and asked with a smile, both senior brother Luo and senior sister Yan want to team up with junior brother Han for the task. It seems junior brother Han is quite capable. Han Yi laughed, modestly said, senior sister Chi is joking. It's just convenient to have companions you know and trust. It can save us from some trouble. Among the trio here, Luo Yunzhou was the best acquainted of Han Yi's combat abilities. When Han Yi was at the Qi cultivation 6th layer, he could withstand even cultivators of the 8th layer holding superior magical artifacts. Now that he had stepped into the 7th layer and been cultivating for 3 years, wouldn't killing an 8th layer cultivator be like slaughtering chickens or dogs? Even if he was up against a regular Qi cultivator of the 9th layer, claiming to have a slight chance of winning would be modest. As for Yan Ru, she actually wasn't aware of Han Yi's combat prowess. She was just being herself. She didn't have many familiar sect brothers and sisters. She happened to have known Han Yi since the time she was in the Outer Peaks, and during their time in the small Guanai Peak, she had traded pills with Han Yi and knew that Han Yi wasn't greedy, he was a fellow sect member she trusted, hence she made such a statement. Chi Hong just chuckled and didn't bring up the subject again. In her mind, Han Yi was just a cultivator at the Qi cultivation 7th layer, a commoner in terms of aptitude. Although his alchemy skill was exceptional, his fighting power was definitely mediocre. He would even be considered a lower rank among the Xuandan sect. After all, Han Yi didn't have a foundation establishment elder as his master, and he had never participated in the major competitions between the inner and outer peaks. He was more of a cultivator dedicated to closed-door cultivation. She herself had been in the 7th layer for 5 years, and was apprenticed to a foundation-building middle-level cultivator. Although she hadn't taken part in the Cave Heaven trials, she had participated in the major competition of the inner peak. Among 7th layer cultivators, she ranked in the middle and was confident that her fighting power would be much stronger than Han Yi's. Moreover, forming a group should involve partnering with a higher-ranking senior brother or sister. If you could partner with a disciple among the top 100 in the inner peak competition, your safety would be assured, and completing tasks would be a piece of cake. Coming up, the 4 of them chatted for a while, discussing matters of the sect, various rumors, and miscellaneous information. Half an hour later, they left the Immortal Pavilion and returned to their courtyards. After returning to his courtyard, thinking of the new policy, Han Yi had a somewhat uneasy feeling. His intuition came out of nowhere, but he trusted it immensely. 3 batches of manifests, one hope I'm in the 3rd batch, so the disciples in the first 2 batches can rack up more experiences for me to learn from. That's what Han Yi thought, but he felt reality might not go as he wished. Oh well, let's cultivate first. Even if I'm in the 1st batch, I won't be scared. With 3 years of intense cultivation, Han Yi's strength had dramatically improved. Sitting quietly in his room, his eyes flickered, and a faint red panel popped up. Name: Han Yi. Lifespan: 33 135ths. Realm: Qi cultivation 7th layer 29 100ths. Cultivation method: Fiery Gang mystical skill proficiency 48 100ths. Skill: Alchemy skill fire is purely green 47 100ths. Spirit Void Finger fire is purely green 68 100ths. Sword control skill fire is purely green 59 100ths. Light body technique fire is purely green 93 100ths. Fire shield skill fire is purely green 19 100ths. Turtle breath skill fire is purely green 18 100ths. Departing fire sword formula enter the hall 48 100ths. Talisman making skill beginner 29 100ths. Closing square bracket. In 3 years, the proficiency panel had not changed drastically, but gradual progress was evident. Lifespan, realm, cultivation methods, all had been updated. In the skill section, a new skill departing fire sword formula was added. Apart from the temporarily shelved talisman making skill, the progress in other skills was also prominent. Cultivation was not an overnight success. One needed to be persistent through solitude. Otherwise, why would the immortal path be described as long and arduous? The light body technique has been enhancing the fastest. Strive for time and push it to the new level. Sword control skill and spirit void finger, the latter stages are harder. Must not rush. Furthermore, the progress in departing fire sword formula is noticeable, but over these years, the talisman making skill has made very little progress. It couldn't be helped due to the lack of time. Certain sacrifices must be made. In a blink, already 12 years have passed since the journey started. Being sent to the mountain feels like it happened just yesterday. The sentimental Han Yi shut the panel down, stepped into the backyard into the soul-locking array, and began practicing the light body technique. 3 days later, Han Yi received notice that he was on the first list of going out. Hearing this news, Han Yi was calm. But after communicating with his familiar companions, he became uneasy. Luo Yunzhou, Yan Ru, even Qi Hong weren't on the first list. He was the only one chosen. Han Yi felt like cursing. Chapter 72, Going Together. Translator. 549,690,339. Little Lingshu Peak, Little Lingshu Building. Zheng Hai took a sip of spirit wine, deliberately showing a look of resentment on his face. You're now an inner sect disciple, but why are you being stingier than before? Inviting me to drink at the Little Lingshu Building doesn't match your noble status at all. At least it should be the Drunken Immortal Tower on Little Golden Crow Peak, not the Ascending Immortal Pavilion on Azure Dragon Peak. Han Yi glared at Zheng Hai annoyedly. Get lost. Zheng Hai quickly withdrew his resentful expression, his face full of laughter. But this isn't bad either, at least you were considerate enough to invite me to drink at Little Lingshu Peak. Han Yi put down his wine and let out a sigh. Damn, why was one chosen to be part of the first batch of participants? My luck is so bad. Zheng Hai remained expressionless. Han Yi, who are you grumbling for? Are you secretly pleased in your heart? Tell me, every time you come back from an adventure, isn't it always with significant progress? The first time, you came back from an official mission down the mountain and your alchemy skill improved dramatically. The second time, you got sent to the front lines, and upon returning, you broke through to the 7th level of chi cultivation after a period of isolation. At first, I didn't believe it, but I realized later that out of all people, it's you who's the most mysterious. One can't compare with you. Zheng Hai was feeling mixed emotions. Previously, wanting to emulate Han Yi, he also voluntarily applied for a mission. Unexpectedly, it wasted more than a year of his time, and he regretted it so much that it made him sick. After returning to the mountain, he reflected seriously on his experience and decided he couldn't compare himself with Han Yi. He calmed down and focused on his cultivation. Over the years, he has already broken through to the 5th level of chi cultivation, restoring some of his confidence. May your words come true. Han Yi sarcastically replied. His trajectory over these years has been mainly on Azure Dragon Peak. Occasionally he would visit Little Lingshu Peak, and coincidentally, every time Zheng Hai was in secluded cultivation. This time before going out, he intentionally wanted to meet Zheng Hai. Coincidentally, he was available, so he invited him for a drink. The reason he didn't invite Zheng Hai to the Drunken Immortal Tower was that he feared Zheng Hai might have other intentions. It might be better to visit the Little Lingshu Building and reminisce about the old times. By the way, I was at Vermilion Bird Peak yesterday and happened to meet Brother Guan in the main hall. One heard that he is also on the list of the first batch of inner sect disciples. Han Yi, why don't you consider teaming up with him? While drinking, Zheng Hai spoke again. Han Yi's gaze flickered slightly, but he shook his head gently. When the list was released, he had already looked at it. In the first batch of disciples, not only was Guandi from Fuai Peak on the list, but even Chu Jinmo, who had moved from Small Guanai Peak to White Tiger Peak many years ago, was also included. In addition, there were some other acquaintances with whom he had little contact on the list. However, Han Yi only gave it a thought and then dismissed the idea of teaming up with them. Over the years, he has been closer to Luo Yunzhou and Yan Ru, as they all were in Azure Dragon Peak. He had almost no contact with others from the inner peaks. The path to immortality is long, and some people are destined to grow more distant over time. Why insist on something unnecessary? As for Zheng Hai, Han Yi's emotions were also complex. This fellow disciple was the first person to care for him after he crossed over to this world and could be considered a close friend. But he also knew that as the gap in their cultivation levels grew wider, they would inevitably gradually drift apart. Occasionally inviting Zheng Hai for a drink was his way of preserving this precious friendship from falling apart too soon. No, thank you, Han Yi refused without further explanation. Zheng Hai remained silent, continued drinking, and didn't probe further. The spirit wine was flowing freely, and after they finished drinking, they went their separate ways. The third day, Han Yi went up to White Tiger Peak. As he approached the White Tiger Market, he saw that hundreds of people were scattered around a small square outside the market. In the square, there were 3 survived disaster immortal ships docked. This was a medium-sized transport immortal ship, only of supreme artifact degree, 1 level lower than the magical artifact of a flying immortal ship. However, it was more than enough for transporting them to the Evil Mountain range. In fact, the Schwanden sect didn't provide any travel recommendations. They had just announced a new policy. These immortal ships were organized by the marketplaces of the 3 inner peaks to take advantage of a business opportunity. To take an immortal ship directly to the Evil Mountain range would cost 100 lower-grade spirit stones. The price was quite high, but most of the inner sect disciples chose this way of traveling, as it could save them a lot of trouble. From the Schwanden sect to the Evil Mountain range, if they were to travel on their own, they would have to pass through Nanyang County, Luofeng County, and Huaibei County. These counties were vast territories and it would take at least half a month to reach their destination, even if they traveled day and night at the speed of the 7th level of Qi cultivation. Wasting valuable time is one thing, but the main concern is the danger it involves. On their way, they might encounter hostile cultivators from the Blood God sect, robbing cultivators or demonic cultivators. Any of these could cause great trouble. They might even die without accomplishing their mission. "Oh, Brother Han." Suddenly, a serene and gentle voice echoed from the side. Han Yi turned to look and saw Chu Jinmo, a woman with a graceful figure and a warm smile on her face, carrying a silver long sword, and walking towards him. "Sister Chu," Han Yi responded with a smile. Speaking of which, he hadn't seen Chu Jinmo for many years, and the last time he saw her was before the Great Immortal and Demon War had begun. However, after all these years, Chu Jinmo remained as gentle and warm as he remembered. Only, Chu Jinmo's attire had changed a bit. Previously, Chu Jinmo didn't carry any magical weapons. But now, she carried a long sword behind her back. Han Yi couldn't help but take another glance at the silver hilt of the sword and quickly shifted his gaze away. Chu Jinmo noticed Han Yi's gaze but didn't explain. Instead, she softly said, "I saw your name on the list earlier and learned that you have already advanced to the late stage of Qi cultivation and entered the inner peak. Congratulations, junior brother." Han Yi thanked her graciously. "Junior brother Han, are you going alone this time?" Chu Jinmo looked a bit surprised, noticing that Han Yi had no companions with him. Everyone knew that this trip to the Evil Mountain range would inevitably be dangerous. Therefore, grouping up and traveling together had become the mainstream choice. Those who traveled alone, like Han Yi, either had great confidence in their abilities or simply couldn't find companions and had no other choice. Chu Jinmo's impression of Han Yi remained that of a talented alchemy disciple who had returned from an external assignment. Moreover, Han Yi had been invisible in sect events like Cave Heaven Trials, Inner-Outer Peak competition, and the joint competition with the Yuan Beast sect. He seemed to prefer secluded cultivation, and his combat capability appeared unremarkable. This was how Chu Jinmo overall viewed Han Yi. "Would you like to join us, junior brother Han? There are a few senior brothers from White Tiger Peak. They know the way. This journey may be dangerous, but it's definitely safer to travel together than alone." Chu Jinmo gestured towards a group of 5 young men standing about 30 meters away, all of whom were wearing the dark blue robes of inner sect disciples. She intended to repay Han Yi for a favor she owed him. Years ago, she invited Han Yi to sell pills to their fellow disciples on Small Guanai Peak. He did not refuse then, so this time, this could be seen as repaying that favor. Seeing Chu Jinmo and Han Yi look over, the 5 young men glanced back with a nod. Han Yi returned the gesture, then shook his head at Chu Jinmo. "Thank you for your kindness, Sister Chu." Actually, thank you for the invitation, Sister Chu. One think'll take you up on that offer. I'll be counting on all of you for this trip." Originally, Han Yi wanted to decline. He initially believed that he could be low profile and thought he was powerful enough to not fear even rivals at the 9th rank of Qi cultivation, so he could travel alone. But as the words reached his throat, he paused and agreed instead. He agreed because he suddenly realized that he, with the 7th order of Qi cultivation, amongst a crowd of 8th and 9th order cultivators, would certainly be the least conspicuous. Even if they encountered danger, the enemies would first target those with high cultivation levels. Those with lower levels could be easily crushed and wouldn't be the first priority, thereby giving him more time to react. Why wouldn't he be up for it? Wasn't this the essence of the low-profile and life-cherishing approach he had always pursued? At that moment, his thoughts shifted slightly. If everything went smoothly, he could let his fellow 8th and 9th level brothers pave the way. He could easily hunt a 7th order evil beast. That would guarantee his success in the trial. Oh, the thought of it makes him happy. He had to admit that his previous thoughts were too narrow. Of course, this was also an attempt. After all, he wasn't sure if the senior brothers would allow him to join their team. After all, Han Yi, being at the 7th level of chi cultivation, was considered weak, and those 5 who Chu Jinmo referred to as senior brothers should be higher than the 7th level. Why would they want to bring a burden? If it were him, he certainly wouldn't be willing to. But he thought trying didn't hurt. The speed at which Han Yi changed his mind left even Chu Jinmo somewhat surprised. She could tell that Han Yi initially intended to refuse, but for some unknown reason, he agreed in the end. Chapter 73. Evil Mountain Range, Seeking Readership. Translator. 549,690,339. Chu Jinmo led Han Yi 30 meters away and introduced him to the other youths. What surprised Han Yi was that these young people, after hearing Chu Jinmo's introduction, did not refuse after their eyes flickered. Moreover, Han Yi could see that their attitude towards Chu Jinmo was subtle, as if they were somewhat in awe, which baffled him. However, it wasn't a good time to ask. Han Yi put this question aside in his heart. After the mutual introductions, Han Yi respectfully greeted each of the fellow apprentices, with a humble attitude. These young people were disciples of the White Tiger Peak, including 3 at the 8th level of the Chi cultivation stage, and 2 at the 9th level. One of the youths at the 9th level of Chi cultivation stage, named Hefengdi, had experienced the Cave Heaven trials and was ranked 47th in the Inner Peak competition. Before the Inner Peak competition, the top 10 disciples were rewarded with Foundation Establishment pills. Many disciples have broken through to the Foundation Establishment stage and automatically left their inner door disciples, identities to become elders, enjoying more cultivation resources. Being ranked 47th also showed that his realm and strength were among the top in the 9th level of Chi cultivation stage. After the introductions, Han Yi stood by the others and listened to the conversation between Chu Jinmo and the 5 fellow apprentices without interrupting. During the conversation, the 5 disciples of the White Tiger Peak showed a subtle sense of awe towards Chu Jinmo. It was clear to Han Yi that it was not faked, even Hefengdi was respectful. Status, or strength, Han Yi had a guess in his heart. A moment later, the immortal ship set off at the time of the 6th watch. Han Yi followed the 6 people, paying the fare, boarding the ship, and setting off. From the Xuanden Sect to the Evil Mountain Range, it takes only 2 days by the survived disaster immortal ship. Uneventful all the way. 2 days later, a continuous mountain range appeared in the eyes of many disciples on the immortal ship. Standing atop the immortal ship, Han Yi couldn't help but feel a slight shock as he gazed at the majestic mountain range. This was because, deep within the mountain range, the terrifying aura of evil beasts would occasionally appear and swiftly disappear. It is said that the evil mountain range stretches from the far west, all the way along the southeast direction, and reaches the shores of the Eastern Sea. This mountain range connects the evil Holy Land and the demon cultivators of the Eastern Sea. Although it's called a mountain range, it's more like the evil clan's passage. In the depths of the evil mountain range, there are many Foundation Establishment demon cultivators, and occasionally golden core demon cultivators appear. It's not an exaggeration to call it a forbidden area for low-level cultivators. However, in the outer periphery, there are mostly only Chi cultivation stage evil beasts and no evil cultivators. In the group of 7, Hefengdi looked at the gradually approaching mountain range and spoke softly. "Senior brother He, what is the difference between evil beasts and evil cultivators?" A Chi cultivation stage 8 level youth named He asked with confusion. Hefengdi swept a glance at everyone, saw that all eyes were on him, smiled faintly, and explained. Unlike the human clan, the road to cultivation for the evil clan is easier to start but harder to progress. Many evil species can give birth to evil power and become evil beasts by taking advantage of the rich environment, absorbing the essence of the sun and moon, or ingesting precious treasures. Evil beasts refer to evil species that haven't built their immortal path foundation. Their ranks are divided into 1st to 9th stages, corresponding to the cultivator's Chi cultivation stages 1 to 9. However, evil beasts have strong bodies by nature. Some unique species have innate supernatural powers and are much stronger than cultivators of the same level. Evil cultivators are those who have built immortal path foundations and have begun to transform into their initial human form. By the Golden Core stage, they completely shed traces of their evil nature and can transform into a complete human body. You don't need to worry. The evil mountain range is vast and has a width at least as wide as Shu State. Our activity range is absolutely peripheral, and the probability of encountering evil cultivators is about the same as being hit by a meteor from the sky. Standing behind everyone, Han Yi had a flash of understanding. He showed admiration. Senior brother He, you know so much. He Fengdi shook his head slightly. It's not that I know a lot, but rather I happen to participate in the Cave Heaven trials. If you also participate in the Cave Heaven trial, you will have a deeper understanding of the cultivation world. He's eyes lit up. Senior brother He, what is the Cave Heaven trial like? Fengdi's eyes flashed with a hint of imperceptible fear. If you have the chance, you should witness it personally. It is a broader, more complicated, and crueler world. Never mind, it's not worth mentioning. Seeing that He Fengdi was not interested in continuing, the others could only feel regretful. In fact, they had asked He Fengdi about the Cave Heaven trials before, but he seemed to have concerns and always kept quiet. Alright, we're almost there. Be on full alert. This time, we are not only hunting evil beasts. We must be prepared for potential ambushes. He Fengdi had a solemn expression on his face, sweeping over the others, finally landing on Han Yi, the newcomer, his face still tense. Junior brother Han may not know the situation of this task, let me explain quickly. This time, the inner disciples' mission is set in the Evil Mountain Range, mainly to train the disciples in life and death struggles while avoiding the ambushes of the Blood God sect's cultivators. In recent years, the cultivators of the Blood God sect have hindered our sect. This time, when our sect sends disciples to the Evil Mountain Range to hunt evil beasts, the Blood God sect will surely assassinate us in secret. If we're unlucky, we'll run into them. So, during this trip, we will face not only evil beasts but also possibly the disguised Blood God sect disciples who act as robbing cultivators. Therefore, please stay on full alert, fight quickly, don't be complacent, and remember. Han Yi's face grew serious and quickly bowed, responding, Han Yi understands. Thank you, senior brother He for the reminder. Good. He Fengdi didn't say much more. Seeing Chu Jinmo's face, he allowed Han Yi to join, and at this moment, reminded him of the matters to pay attention to. He had done his duty. If Han Yi still took everything lightly, it wouldn't be his fault. At this moment, Han Yi looked at He Fengdi and couldn't help but become more interested in the Cave Heaven trial. He Fengdi's body exuded an aura that lingered around him, an aura that could only appear on the Cave Heaven trial's 100 disciples, and something he had never seen in other Xuanden sect disciples. This indicates that the 100 who went through the Cave Heaven trial had undergone tremendous changes in just 1 year. Their experiences must contain great secrets. Since the first Cave Heaven trial, the Xuanden sect didn't hold a second one. Han Yi guessed there were 2 reasons. Either the results didn't meet expectations, or the trial quota was too expensive, so expensive that even the Xuanden sect couldn't afford another one in a short period. Han Yi believed it was the latter. He had noticed during the inner peak competition that 99% of those who returned from the Cave Heaven trial had changed, their combat awareness and ability far higher than before. After the Cave Heaven trial, Han Yi didn't see significant breakthroughs in the Xuanden sect or the Yuan Beast sect no matter how much turmoil they went through. Indeed, the Holy Land is different. It's expensive for a reason. Han Yi faced He Fengdi, who was exuding such aura, and though his heart leapt slightly, he estimated his own strength against He Fengdi. He wasn't sure he could win but was confident that even if he couldn't win, he could remain undefeated. This level of strength was also the initial foundation for his decision to act alone. We have arrived. All disciples, disembark here. The immortal ship will be stationed here until 100 people have gathered or a month has passed. It will then set off to return to the sect. Please, everyone, take care. An old man in the Foundation establishment stage wearing a black robe on the immortal ship spoke loudly. Then, the immortal ship slowly descended and stopped as it shook gently, losing its power completely. Go quickly. After disembarking from the immortal ship, He Fengdi waved his hand, leading everyone quickly toward one direction of the mountain range. Behind him, another cultivator at the 9th stage of Qi cultivation, 3 at the 8th stage, and Chu Jinmo and Han Yi at the 7th stage closely followed. What surprised Chu Jinmo was that Han Yi, with the lowest realm, didn't lag behind but closely followed the team. His face looked solemn, but there was no trace of fear. Junior brother Han has secrets beyond his alchemy skill. Chu Jinmo only thought about it for a moment before letting it go. Every cultivator had secrets, including her, which was normal. At the same time, with the 3 immortal ships docking, over 300 Xuanden sect disciples dispersed quickly into the Evil Mountain Range. Among them, most of them traveled in groups, with as few as 3 or 4 people and as many as 20 or 30. Only a handful of people chose to travel alone. New policy: step out and land in the evil mountain range. Chapter 74. Speculation, seeking more readers. Translator. 549,690,339. An obscure spot on the outskirts of the evil mountain range. Hifengdi led 6 people and stopped here. The deeper you go into the evil mountain range, the more evil beasts you'll encounter. The ones on the periphery don't have a concept of territory and are highly mobile. The closer you get to the center, the higher the intelligence of the evil beasts, the stronger the awareness of territorial occupation. Our plan is also simple: we'll just fight our way through it. 2. As Han Fengdi spoke, the murderous intent in his eyes surged, and the 3 Qi cultivation peak experts next to him involuntarily stepped back half a step. Han Yi also stepped back with the others. Inside, he agreed with Hifengdi's simple, brutish plan. When dealing with evil beasts, it's better to just keep pushing forward, rather than plotting and laying traps. This way, we might be able to accomplish our objectives in a short amount of time and return to the immortal warship base. Evil beasts have powerful bodies, so avoid close combat and focus on long-range attacks. If we encounter 7th Order or lower evil beasts, kill them directly and collect their corpses. Afterward, we'll distribute the proceeds according to our contributions. If we encounter an evil beast of 7th Order or higher, after killing it together, we'll distribute its core to everyone so that they can complete their tasks at the sect. If we encounter a 9th stage evil beast, except for me and Liu Kei, others should focus on defense and hindrance. Be cautious and don't get too close. In case we have terrible luck and run into a mutant 9th stage evil beast with innate supernatural powers or a demon cultivator, scatter and flee immediately. Do not stick together. Whether you can escape or not, it depends on your luck. Even I am no exception. Alright, did everyone understand? Seeing that no one had any objections, Hifengdi led from the front, and the other disciples followed behind, forming a cone-shaped formation and quickly approaching the evil mountain range. Han Yi stayed at the back, and his spirits were on high alert. In case he encountered a demon cultivator, he was ready to turn around and flee without a second thought. Although the probability of this happening was extremely low, he couldn't let his guard down. Within the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the group encountered their first evil beast. It was a giant red spider towering more than a meter tall. 2. Scarlet spider. Based on its aura, it should be a 3rd stage evil beast. I'll handle it. A youth named Shenru, who was at the Qi cultivation 8th level, said so with golden light in his eyes. Han Yi, who was following behind the group, felt a slight ripple in his heart. When he had joined this team, everyone had introduced themselves and their abilities and magic skills. He was getting a general idea of what these White Tiger Peak disciples specialized in. This fellow Shenru practiced Qi observation skill that was capable of discerning the aura of the object being observed, including cultivators, demonic creatures, and natural treasures. As long as there was a vital sign, it could be discerned. Of course, if someone practiced concealment skill and their concealment skill was more profound than his Qi observation skill, then he wouldn't be able to see through it. It seems that these auxiliary skills are also quite useful. Han Yi filed away these thoughts. Now was not the time to think about these things. Even if he wanted to practice auxiliary skills, he would have to return to the Xuanden sect and make plans. At a distance of more than 10 meters away, Shenru had already released a medium-grade magic weapon. It was a golden, needle-like artifact shimmering brilliantly. This needle was 30 centimeters long and 1 centimeter thick, and sharp at both ends, exuding a cold light. Whoosh! The golden needle shot through the air, easily piercing the giant red spider. Then, it shuttled back and forth until it pierced the 3rd stage evil beast's flat head into a honeycomb shape before retrieving it. This cautious attitude is not unlike my own. No, if it were me, I would have directly punctured the spider's abdomen, as well as its sharp legs, dismembered it, and taken it apart piece by piece without leaving any blind spots. Han Yi couldn't help but think to himself. Fortunately, no accidents occurred, and Shenru approached and gently waved his hand to collect the spider's corpse. He said with a smile, "Every part of an evil beast is a treasure. This 3rd stage evil beast should be worth 100 or so spirit stones." Hifengdi reminded, "Don't be careless. This is just a 3rd stage evil beast on the very outskirts. Generally speaking, the abilities of evil beasts are stronger than those of cultivators of the same rank. If junior brother Shen encounters a 7th level evil beast, he must give it his all. Shenru's expression turned serious. Senior brother, he is right in his advice. Alright, let's keep moving forward. He Fengdi turned and continued onwards. From then on, everything went surprisingly smoothly. As they progressively delved deeper, 3rd order, 4th order, and 5th order evil beasts appeared one after another. After sunset, the group found a concealed cave, and another 8th level fellow named Li Yi took out a set of array discs and set up a concealment spirit array. This fellow was an array master. Like alchemy and talisman making, formation was one of the 100 arts of cultivation. Pills are divided into ordinary, standard, flawless, perfect, pill rune, immortal pill, 6 levels in total. Spiritual talismans are divided into 6 levels, making it even simpler. As for formations, they can be divided into offensive formations, concealment formations, and defensive formations based on their function. They can also be divided into 6 ranks, with each rank further divided into 4 levels: lower, middle, upper, and top grade. The concealment spirit array that Li Yi took out was a top grade 1st stage concealment formation. Han Yi sat cross-legged in the cave and glanced at the others who were also sitting cross-legged and resting, deep in thought. Excluding himself, these 6 individuals were all quite skilled, complementing and enhancing each other to create an effect where the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. Yet he couldn't fathom why they would let someone like him join their group. He looked at Chu Jinmo, who was sitting cross-legged with her eyes closed. Had his former senior sister's status really risen so high now? Han Yi was curious but did not ask rashly. The stronger the team, the happier he would be, meaning he could just sit back and reap the benefits along the way. As for Chu Jinmo's status and identity, even if he knew, he wouldn't really abandon his pride to cling to her coattails. That wasn't his personality. He had good teeth but couldn't stomach soft rice. 7 days later, in a tree hole somewhere in the evil mountain range, a bonfire was lit, and 7 figures sat around it. That was close today. That tree demon was so terrifying. Liu Kei's face showed lingering fear as he spoke. Today, their team encountered a 9th stage evil beast, a tree demon. The tree demon's main body wasn't very thick, but when He Fengdi and Liu Kei attacked it, they discovered that it was far from ordinary. Its visible trunk was just a disguise, its actual body was hidden underground. When its true form emerged from the ground, countless roots as thick as arms wriggled like a chaotic dance at an astonishing speed. It was difficult to cut them down, leaving everyone aghast. Liu Kei was directly hit, and if it weren't for his magic tool blocking the attack, he figured he would have been slapped to death. Even though the magic tool protected him, the terrifying power still transferred to his body, causing intense pain that lingered for a long time. After the tree demon revealed its true form, He Fengdi didn't hesitate to lead everyone to flee. There are countless types of evil beasts, as numerous as the clouds, and some are so special that they fear neither multiple chi cultivation peak cultivators nor 9th stage beasts. This tree demon seems to be one of those special evil beasts. Fortunately, its mobility is incredibly slow, which allowed us to escape. Otherwise, we would have had to scatter and flee individually. He Fengdi was also shaken by the close call. Next, he looked at Han Yi and praised him. And Han Jr. Brother's spiritual talisman proved very effective today. What an unexpected pleasant surprise. Han Yi merely smiled and said, I was just doing what I was supposed to, it's not worth mentioning. When the tree demon's main body burst from the ground, Han Yi threw out 3 explosion symbols, briefly holding off the creature and allowing everyone to retreat intact. These 3 explosion symbols were bought years ago and had been stored in his storage bag. At the time, he bought 4, one of which had been used to destroy a corpse and erase evidence in Tianqing City. Tree demons were wood-type evil beasts, and they were particularly susceptible to fire-type spiritual talismans like explosion symbols. Most of the disciples from White Tiger Peak had metal-type spiritual roots and primarily practiced metal-type magic skills. In the face of the crisis, they could only think about fleeing and didn't consider any other tactics. Only Han Yi had the presence of mind to use the explosion symbols to buy some time against the tree demon. This ability to adapt on the fly impressed He Fengdi. In reality, the others also had various types of spiritual talismans, including explosion symbols, in their storage bags. They just lacked the adaptability Han Yi had displayed. It seems that inviting junior brother Han to join us was a good choice, Chu Jinmo said with a smile, her ethereal voice echoing through the tree hole. However, Han Yi noticed that there was more admiration and even reverence in the eyes of the others when they looked at Chu Jinmo. It was intriguing. Suddenly, boom, a violent tremor came from outside the tree hole, causing dry tree bark to fall from the ceiling. Not Good, an evil beast is attacking the concealment spirit array. Li Yi, holding the array plate, turned pale. Everyone jumped up to their feet. Chapter 75, Tiger Demon. Translator. 549,690,339. Let's go, this place is exposed, we shouldn't stay for long. He Fengdi's eyes were cold as he spoke quickly. This place was no longer where they first landed, but much deeper into the mountain range. Han Yi calculated that based on their current location, they were probably about 130 miles deep into the mountain range. And still, this place was on the outskirts of the mountain range. According to He Fengdi, anything within 500 miles was considered the outskirts. Han Yi estimated that, from their starting position, the area they had traversed for 10 miles was mostly inhabited by third-stage evil beasts. Beyond 10 miles, they encountered 4th to 6th rank evil beasts. It was only after 100 miles that they met evil beasts above the 7th rank. Moreover, evil beasts above the 7th rank were extremely territorial. In theory, after they had killed a 7th rank evil beast nearby, its lingering aura in the area should have kept other evil beasts away, making this place safe. But now, an evil beast was attacking the formation, which was puzzling. However, there was no time for them to think too much. Outside the concealment spirit array, the terrifying roars of the beasts shook the formation to the point of collapse. Crack! As they ran out of the tree hollow, the formation plate in Li Yi's hand suddenly cracked in half, and the spirit stones embedded on it turned to ashes. Not good, the formation is broken. In such a short time, to break the formation, this evil beast is definitely a 9th stage evil beast, and possibly even the strongest of the 9th stage. Li Yi's face turned extremely pale in an instant. Right after that, roar! An earth-shattering roar shook everyone, causing their bodies to become unstable, and their faces to turn pale, including Han Yi's. Even if he were to face such a top-tier 9th stage evil beast, he would have to flee for his life. In the next moment, a huge tiger, 3 meters tall and 6 meters long, broke a giant tree with a furious roar and landed heavily on the ground. Under the deep moonlight, its black and white striped fur shimmered with raging demonic power, and its eyes, like lanterns, shone with a bloodthirsty red light, showing no sign of reason or sanity. Everyone shuddered as they looked into the eyes of the tiger demon. This tiger demon had gone mad, and everyone had a sudden realization. What was even more terrifying was that this insane tiger demon had an aura far more terrifying than the tree demon they had encountered earlier. It was definitely a top-tier 9th category beast, and possibly even beginning to evolve into a demon cultivator. There's no escape, we must fight. He Fengdi, with his extensive battle experience, knew that there was no way to calmly retreat after seeing the mad eyes of the giant tiger. He flipped his hands, and a palm-sized, 3-legged golden fining pot appeared. Then, with a fierce throw, the golden fining pot grew against the wind, reaching over 2 meters in height. Top-quality magical tool, Gold Devouring Pot. Under the golden glow, the void-contained gold devouring pot released streaks of golden light from its 3 legs, spreading towards the giant tiger. Under the moonlight, the spreading golden light seemed like a golden sea, but upon closer inspection, one could see that the continuously emerging golden light was actually countless small golden insects, as tiny as ants. Gold-devouring insects. Facing the demonic tiger, He Fengdi immediately used his trump card. Meanwhile, Liu Kei also used a magic tool, which was a black-colored blade. With a slash, more than 10 blade shadows merged into one, forming an astonishing blade light, like a moon hanging in the sky, suddenly pressed down. Shen Ru's weapon was still that needle-shaped tool. This time he used 3 long needles at once, turning them into 3 golden illusions. They flashed past, piercing straight at the tiger demon. Li Yi was an array master, and one of his arrays was a combat-type array. He moved in a flash, planting 4 small blue flags around him. Then, holding the 5th flag in his hand, he poured his power into it. The surrounding flags quivered, emitting blue light that spread out rapidly and formed more than 10 illusory handleless long swords in the air. Go! Li Yi's thoughts shifted, and with a wave of the small blue flag in his hand, the illusory long swords in the air became solid. Swords rained down and rushed toward the tiger demon. He Zi's magic tool was a blue long sword, but he didn't control it directly. Instead, he used his index and middle fingers to pull out 3 sword lights from the sword. The sword lights soared and emitted pale golden light, moving to attack the tiger demon. This was a branch of sword control skill. Similar to the Dan sword skill, it was called the guided sword skill. nurturing the sword tool and refining the sword light inside it. As the cultivator's realm and the sword tool's grade increased, the stored sword light would become more potent and abundant. There was a golden core stage cultivator who guided millions of swords, covering 1,000 milk area in cold light. He managed to deal a heavy blow to a nascent soul cultivator, shocking the cultivation world. Being the only female among the 7, Chu Jinmo had a serious expression on her face. With a tug of her hands, the silver long sword on her back suddenly emitted a sword cry. The silver long sword leapt up, like a dragon soaring into the sky, its movement lively and joyful. Han Yi couldn't help but take an extra glance. Since entering the evil mountain range, this was the first time Chu Jinmo had made a move. Even when facing a troublesome tree demon, she had not taken out her sword tool. When he saw the silver long sword leaping into the air, Han Yi was suddenly shocked. Chu Jinmo was actually practicing the way of the sword immortal. A sword immortal is not an immortal being but an incredibly powerful cultivation method. For a sword immortal, their sword tool is extremely special and has a unique name, Spirit Sword. A spirit sword forms a sword spirit that can develop the intelligence of the spirit clan and practice the spirit path. It was rumored in the cultivation world that sword immortals were unparalleled in killing. Han Yi never thought that Chu Jinmo would practice the path of the sword immortal. Years ago, when she was still in small Guanai Peak, she had not revealed such a wonder. Was it after she stepped into the inner peak that she had the chance to receive the sword immortal inheritance? At this moment, Han Yi's thoughts were racing, but he only had time for a moment of shock before it was his turn to act. Facing the 9th stage peak tiger demon, he couldn't hold back. However, as everyone else was already attacking, their offense was strong enough. In the blink of an eye, he made a choice. With a pull of his single hand, the shadowless sword at his waist silently flew out. Facing the irrational tiger demon, they could only rely on hard strength. Since the shadowless sword and the demonic dagger had similar functions, Han Yi didn't use both. Since he stood behind everyone and the shadowless sword moved quietly, only Chu Jinmo, who had always been sensitive to swords, noticed the slight fluctuations of energy. However, at this moment, she was fully focused on controlling her spirit sword and was in a critical situation, so she didn't turn to look. Speaking of it, it had been only half a moment since the giant tiger demon had landed, got engulfed in madness, and locked its scarlet eyes on the group when Fengdi yelled and attacked first. In the next instant, the others also launched their attacks frantically. Only half a breath of time had passed. Half a breath later, gold-devouring insects, blade light, long needles, blue sword lights created by formation, pale golden sword light from the guided sword skill, the soaring spirit sword, and the silent shadowless sword were all attacking the giant tiger. Chapter 76, Horror. Translator. 549,690,339. Roar. The giant tiger's frenzied eyes seemed to sense the pervasive murderous intent, revealing a hint of struggle. In the midst of the struggle, a flicker of rationality flashed through, but it was instantly submerged. The madness escalated, and the beast's instincts were intensified to their extremes. An evil wind suddenly rose, and the terrifying body of the giant tiger violently charged forward, first colliding with the late-arriving blade light. The curvature of the crescent-like light collapsed the darkness of the night, only leaving a shallow bloodstain on the giant tiger's body. Next, clang, clang, clang. 3 pale golden long needles collided with the giant tiger's body, making 3 gold iron chiming sounds. Immediately after, green sword light and pale golden sword light fell simultaneously, but shattered into countless spirit lights in an instant. The colossal tiger demon passed through the shattered spirit lights unscathed. Gold-devouring insects crawled on its body, leaving only fine bloodstains on the tiger demon's body as they fell off after it shook vigorously. A sword cry fell from the sky, accompanied by piercing sword light, like thunder from the heavens. Perhaps it was the beast's instinctual perception of danger. The tiger demon suddenly raised its head. An invisible wave radiated from its blood-red, crazed eyes, directly confronting Chu Jinmo's spirit sword. Supernatural power, eyes of restraint. The descending spirit light suddenly came to a halt, revealing the sword tool itself, a silver longsword struggling incessantly. Its initial awakening of intelligence was akin to a newborn infant, abruptly restrained without any success in resisting and appeared panicked and helpless. Just at that moment, as the tiger demon raised its head, a silent shadow approached in a roundabout way. From below, it pierced upward, directly plunging into the tiger demon's throat. Delighted that his pure sword control skill had managed to conceal its presence, Han Yi's expression immediately changed after. The shadowless sword that had pierced into the giant tiger's throat was stuck at the throat bone, unable to move even the slightest bit. The tiger demon looked back, its eyes completely ferocious and wild. The shadowless sword remained lodged in the throat, only its black hilt visible, hardly noticeable in the darkness of the night. Roar! An earth-shattering tiger roar suddenly erupted. This time, the tiger's roar carried a terrifying demonic power, bearing down on everyone with even more madness reaching the point of insanity. Everyone's faces were filled with utter horror and disbelief. In truth, as soon as Liu Kei's first blade light left only a shallow bloodstain on the tiger demon's body, everyone's faces had already been filled with immense horror. Next, gold needles clanged to the ground, sword light shattered one after another, even the gold-devouring insects within the upper-grade magic tool, the golden cauldron, were only able to leave fine bloodstains on the tiger demon's body. At that moment, the terror of the crowd hit its peak. Then, the supernatural power restrained the spirit sword, while the roar ensued. Despite their full force, they were not even able to harm the giant tiger minimally. Everyone was already aware of their impending defeat, with thoughts of fleeing emerging in their minds out of fear. But at this moment, the space seemed to solidify. The returning gaze of the tiger demon, with supernatural power still in its eyes, weighed on everyone like a mountain, immobilizing them. In truth, at that moment, the silver spirit sword in midair had already broken free from the restraint of the eyes and regained its mobility. However, the spirit sword, recently nurtured with low intelligence, was fearful and dared not stab the tiger demon again. Had it done so, the outcome might have been different. The spirit sword let out a low cry, falling from the sky, as if a wronged child returning to the embrace of its family. It went straight into Chu Jinmo's scabbard behind his back, quivering non-stop. Just at that moment, gusts of evil wind swept across, and the tiger demon pounced on. Released from the power of the eyes of restraint, everyone looked frantically to the side, their faces full of shock. Under the paws of the 3-meter-tall tiger demon, a person was half submerged into the ground, with only a lone head remaining visible. The face was turned to one side, with its eyes still full of horror. Fast, too fast, way too fast. In the aftermath of the giant tiger's earth-shattering roar, Liu Kei, with a late stage of chi cultivation, was already killed, standing at the farthest edge of the 7-person team with Hizi, who was practicing sword-drawing skill, similarly fallen. From the moment the giant tiger landed until now, only around a breath and a half of time had passed. Run, He Fengdi screamed, his voice almost changing. As he cried out, his body shot towards the night, and he pulled out a spiritual talisman from his storage bag, pasting it onto himself. A flash of light passed, and he was already 100 meters away. At the same time, the still alive Shenru and Li Yi also scattered and fled in opposite directions, using various means to rapidly reach their maximum speed. However, faster than them was Chu Jinmo. Before everyone turned around, the spirit sword behind her had already made a choice for her. The spirit sword leapt out, hovering in the void. As Chu Jinmo saw the tragic situation on her side, she lightly jumped onto the spirit sword. Before taking off, she scanned around, and suddenly realized that Han Yi, who had just been by her side, was already 100 meters away, not a bit slower than He Fengdi, who had used a spiritual talisman. Chu Jinmo's momentary confusion was only brief as she quickly recovered. Without thinking further, the spirit sword soared into the sky, disappearing in an instant. Sword immortals, at the chi cultivation stage, can use their spirit swords to fly. Meanwhile, only a very few late-stage of chi cultivation cultivators can use special magical tools to fly, and not as conveniently as sword immortals. In the blink of an eye, the 5 of them fled in different directions. This was the rule they had established long ago: if they encountered irresistible evil beasts or enemies, they would each flee for their lives. On the other side, the tiger monster that bit the person in its mouth in half roared again. The sword tool in its throat and the bloody rage boiling inside its body made it constantly confused and without reason. After a bit of destruction, the tiger monster seemed to catch a whiff of something and charged in a certain direction. 10 breaths after the tiger monster disappeared, 3 figures appeared in the vicinity of the destroyed tree hole. Hey, this tiger monster is really useful. Uncle and kept it in the evil mountain range and didn't expect it to be so effective one day, said the young man on the left. This tiger monster is not just an ordinary evil beast, but it has taken a big step towards becoming a demon cultivator. It's not an exaggeration to call it a half-step demon cultivator. Uncle and kept it in the evil mountain range to guard the spirit plant and also hoped that it would take that last step and become a demon cultivator. Unfortunately, the spirit plant just happened to mature and coincide with the Schwanden sect's mission, so he had to sacrifice the tiger monster. However, this blood soul curse corrodes the flesh of the blood monster and pollutes its power, indirectly burning its life force, making it lose its mind. This plan can only last for a maximum of half a day. The young man on the right added. The third young man, standing in the middle of the trio, wore a blood-red robe, had a calm face, and carried a blood-red sword tool on his back. He glanced at the two mutilated corpses on the ground and nodded. Enough. Half a day is already enough. Tonight, we've already placed the lure near the gathered Schwanden sect disciples. As it rushes over, it will kill some and scatter the rest. Next, it's our hunting ground. The calm-faced young man took a few steps forward, looking over where Chu Jinmo had just stood and then looking up into the sky. However, there's a sword immortal among the Schwanden sect disciples. Upon mentioning the sword immortal, the calm-faced young man's expression changed significantly. Brother Han, don't worry. That sword immortal is only at the 7th level of chi cultivation. Even though they are the so-called first in killings among sword immortals, they might not necessarily be able to defeat someone from the 9th level, let alone someone like you at the peak of the 9th level. Even if they were at the foundation establishment stage, you wouldn't be afraid. After finishing, the young man on the left looked puzzled. But isn't the sword immortal's legacy only found in that one place? How could the Schwanden sect have someone who is a sword immortal? The young man in the middle's face turned calm again. Let's go. We are responsible for following the tiger monster in case of accidents. The other disciples who scattered from the Schwanden sect will naturally be hunted down by our other brothers. As for that sword immortal, it's not as simple as you think. For now, just leave her alone. And remember, if you encounter a sword immortal, you can kill but not humiliate. If a sword immortal is killed, it's their own fault for not cultivating properly. But, if they are humiliated, people from that place will come out, and it won't just be my bad luck, but the blood god sects as well. The two 9th level blood god sect cultivators on the left and the right nodded and followed the middle young man, quickly moving forward to catch up to the rampaging tiger monster. Chapter 77, A Kill. Translator. 549,690,339. Han Yi was the first to notice that something was wrong. Because the giant tiger's roar was due to his shadowless sword's credit. His fire is purely green sword control skill, combined with his focus on controlling a single shadowless sword, had not been distracted. When the shadowless sword was trapped by the giant tiger and unable to move, he sensed an unprecedented danger and quietly retreated one step back. In his hand, he had two more spiritual talismans. One speed-boosting talisman and one yin thunder talisman. The speed-boosting talisman was added to enhance his speed for preparation to flee. With the yin thunder talisman in hand, Han Yi's gaze was locked on the giant tiger. If the tiger showed signs of weakness, he would definitely activate the first-grade top-quality spiritual talisman without hesitation, and strike it down, dealing a fatal blow. Besides that, the 4 wind demon daggers hidden in his body were also trembling slightly. If the Yin Thunder talisman could not contribute, the wind demon daggers would come into play next. At a critical moment, he decided to go all out. If he still held back, it would be nothing but seeking death. However, the moment the giant tiger's innate supernatural power to imprison space was revealed and then it pounced, Han Yi realized that even if he had more first-grade top-quality spiritual talismans, he might not be able to kill this inherently supernatural tiger monster. Therefore, he did not watch the final bloody scene of the tiger monster's attack. Instead, he quickly slapped the speed-boosting talisman on himself and, in a flash, appeared 20 meters away. Before leaving, he saw He Fengdi escaping in another direction, Li Yi and Shen Ru were also scrambling to flee, and Chu Jinmo was already standing on the silver spirit sword. Han Yi turned his head and didn't look back. If he had the confidence to kill the tiger monster, he would definitely not hesitate to take action. But with the current situation, even if he went all out, there was nothing he could do. They had no choice but to flee separately, and each would leave it to fate. He even abandoned the shadowless sword, showing that he was also helpless. In this group, he and Chu Jinmo had the best relationship. If he didn't know Chu Jinmo's identity as a sword immortal, he would pull Chu Jinmo to escape together. However, knowing that Chu Jinmo was a sword immortal, he knew that Chu Jinmo was the safest of all people. The way of the sword immortal, the control of the sword, was already one of their combat abilities. It's just that the path of sword immortal is too outstanding in killing, which has the evaluation of first in killing. Aside from that, their ability to escape and defend was equally strong. Han Yi only slowed down discreetly after fleeing about 10 kilometers. He planned to find a place to spend the night and return to the Immortal Warship base the next morning and take the warship back to the sect. Previously, after venturing deep into the 100 Li, the group had mostly encountered 7th Order evil beasts. Han Yi already had the core parts of 7th Order evil beasts in his storage bag, which was enough to complete the sect's new mission this time. The reason why everyone went deep was that they had only killed one 9th stage evil beast and were just one short of completing the group's mission. However, they never expected to encounter the giant tiger's attack. But, there must be something wrong with that tiger monster. Han Yi's eyes flashed as he began to speculate now that he had calmed down. The next moment, he suddenly stopped and looked up to the area in front of him, and sensed the presence of cultivators in the Forbidden Zone, 100 meters away. Junior Xuanden Sect Han Nan, may I ask which senior brother is ahead? Han Yi deliberately didn't reveal his real name, in case the other party was not a member of the Xuanden Sect. Giving his real name would mean more trouble, so he could only make up a temporary name. If the other party was indeed from the Xuanden Sect, they would respond, and he could explain later. But that cultivator's aura was heading straight towards him without speaking. A naked murderous intent was rushing towards him. As the distance closed, Han Yi could tell that the other's aura was higher than his own but lower than Liu Kei's. The other party was at the 8th stage of qi refining. It seems that the other party assumed they had him cornered. Naturally, under normal circumstances, a blood god sect cultivator at the 8th stage of qi refining would not have much difficulty. Killing a singled-out Xuanden sect cultivator at the 7th stage, barring any accidents. However, Han Yi was the biggest accident. Despite losing his shadowless sword, he still had his wind demon daggers, as well as numerous other skills. The murderous intent rose silently, only to erupt in an instant. A bloody light turned into a sharp arrow, piercing the night and appearing within 3 meters of Han Yi's body as soon as it was revealed. Han Yi did not panic, extending a hand to press against the void. The spirit energy surged, spreading, and forming a flaming shield a meter high and half a meter wide. Fire shield skill. Boom. The arrow-like bloody light collided with the fire shield skill and shattered abruptly, turning into a sky full of colorful energy. Huh! The attacking cultivator let out an exclamation. The robe of blood surged, and 6 bloody arrows were fired at Han Yi in the blink of an eye. Boom, boom, boom. The shield remained motionless. Han Yi could sense the other party's breath hitching. Then, to his surprise, the other party turned around and fled without hesitation. So decisive that he didn't even see it coming. But his brows furrowed in the next moment. The other party's keen sense for battle was indeed much higher than his, and there was definitely a problem with the ease with which the other party found him. He couldn't let the other party escape, in case they had accomplices or other tricks up their sleeve. Kill. This time, it was Han Yi's turn to attack. Once he made a move, it was a series of continuous attacks. The fire shield skill disappeared, and spirit light burst from his fingertips, chasing the opponent at an incredible speed. However, the other party was still on guard for Han Yi's attack while running. The opponent threw out a magical device, a box-shaped one, and detonated it after throwing it out. Decisive, clean, and once again, unexpected. Boom! The magical device exploded, submerging Han Yi's spirit void finger in a violent surge of spirit light. Yet, the other party had not expected Han Yi's spirit void finger to be so powerful. At the same time, dozens of equally fast spirit lights pierced through the surging waves of spirit energy and landed on the other party's body in the blink of an eye. Boom, boom, boom. Dense explosions followed, and a figure stumbled backward. The blood-red robe he wore was now completely torn, revealing the black protective inner armor underneath. He had been hit by dozens of spirit void fingers in a row. Even with a middle-grade magical armor, this 8th Order cultivator had taken heavy damage. Whoosh! A black shadow flashed, and its head shot up into the sky. The headless body finally collapsed to the ground. The black shadow revealed its true form, a pitch-black dagger. Wind Demon Dagger. The dagger silently retracted back. At this moment, 2 figures approached with the speed of lightning, coming within 100 meters of Han Yi. Huh! Senior brother Zhou has been killed. A voice cried out in shock. HMPH, killing a disciple of the Blood God sect is seeking death. Another cold and harsh voice, filled with a thick murderous intent, followed. On Han Yi's body, a second dagger silently emerged from the bottom of his pant leg. The one he had just retrieved was now in his hand. At this moment, it's you. The person who had exclaimed earlier saw Han Yi's face, and his expression changed dramatically. His voice was even tinged with a hint of fear. Huh, who? The first sound was from Han Yi, and the second, from the second person who was approaching. As they got closer, Han Yi could make out the faces of the two newcomers under the moonlight. At first glance, they were strangers. After searching his memory, Han Yi recalled his past encounters with the blood god sect and recognized the person who had just exclaimed as a 7th-order cultivator he had spared in Tianqing City. At that time, Han Yi had intended to use the turtle breath skill to hide but ended up accidentally causing the collapse of the cellar he was hiding in. He bumped into Kui Xingchen, Luo Yunzhou, and Dao Shuhua. Accompanying them were 3 7th-order cultivators from the blood god sect. Afterward, Han Yi attacked, killing 2 and letting 1 escape. The escaped one corresponded to the person in front of him. Years later, that person had already reached the 8th order. However, what's the use of reaching the 8th order? They were all going to die anyway. Han Yi's gaze shifted to the second person, a middle-aged scholar-like cultivator. In his hand, a silver fan gleamed coldly. Chapter 78, Battle of Spells. Translator, 549,690,339. Han Yi was completely unfamiliar with the appearance of the middle-aged, scholarly man and could confirm that he had never seen him before. When they were in Tianqing City, if he looked around like he had with Dao Shuhua, he would have discovered this middle-aged scholar cultivator who had killed Lu Su. Brother Shi, this man killed Kong Feiyang and Huang Dao back in Tianqing City. He is very powerful, so we must be careful. The first young man's gaze settled on Han Yi, and his expression was solemn. His magic power began to circulate around him, becoming gravely serious to the extreme. Oh, capable of killing 2 at the 7th level in Tianqing City, and now killing our junior brother Zhou. It seems we really need to put in some effort. The middle-aged scholar named Shi Heng looked at Han Yi. Although he said that they needed to put in some effort, casually, his inner heart was already fully alert. Just as the words left his mouth, without any sign, he suddenly moved. His extremely fast figure was like a bolt of lightning, and in the blink of an eye, he bridged a distance of 10 meters. He was now less than 3 meters away from Han Yi, and the silver folding fan in his hand was suddenly thrown forward. As the fan spun, it sprinkled rings of silver brilliance, which eclipsed the thin moonlight. It looked beautiful but actually concealed a deadly danger. Han Yi sensed a slight danger. This middle-aged man was very strong, extremely strong, unlike the 8th level Qi cultivator he had just killed. Instead, he was one of the top cultivators at the 8th level. He rapidly retreated, using his light body technique. In an instant, he pulled back 10 meters and shifted 3 meters to the side. Swish! The silent, silver brilliance shone, cutting through the space where Han Yi had just stood. 10 meters behind his original position, a soft creaking sound could be heard. Han Yi looked in the direction of the sound and couldn't help but constrict his pupils. Breaking, the gigantic trees behind him with diameters of 5 to 6 meters began to slowly fall. The dazzling silver brilliance from earlier had directly severed more than a dozen trees at their waist and made only a very faint sound. Han Yi turned his head to look at the floating silver folding fan, and a heavy feeling rose in his heart. This magic weapon was undoubtedly a top-quality one, even among the top of top-quality magic weapons. The middle-aged, scholarly cultivator seemed surprised that Han Yi was able to dodge his sudden attack. Although his face was calm, his heart grew even more cautious. Kill! With both hands drawing together, the silver scale fan floating and spinning in front of him suddenly transformed. It had originally been a half-circle fan, but now it stretched out further, extending completely into a circle with the fan leaves spread flat, turning into a silver disc. The top-quality magic weapon. The silver scale fan, transformed into its second form. Go! The disc disappeared suddenly, reappearing in front of Han Yi as if it had teleported. His expression did not change. As soon as he had moved sideways and saw the power of this weapon, he had already prepared himself. A fire shield instantly sprang up. Bang! The fire scattered, the shield shattered, and the disc halted. Han Yi's expression remained unchanged. His index finger, middle finger, and ring finger pressed against his thumb. He then flicked sideways with his body, and 3 rays of spirit light appeared. They traversed a distance of 4 meters in an instant and collided with another magic weapon, a blood-red, banner-shaped weapon called the Blood Soul Banner. Bang! 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 The spirit void finger exploded continuously, directly destroying half of the mid-tier magic weapon and sending it flying. 3 meters behind the magic weapon, another figure appeared, the cultivator Han Yi had let escape at Tianqing City. This cultivator's face changed greatly as he caught the Blood Soul banner and then backed away in a hurry. He instantly understood that this battle was not something he could take part in. However, Han Yi did not forget that there was not just the middle-aged scholar as his enemy here, there was also another cultivator at the 8th level. Nonetheless, this 8th level cultivator had only just advanced to the 8th level and did not pose any threat to Han Yi at the moment. After Han Yi flicked away the 3 spirit void fingers, he immediately turned his attention back to the battle. At this moment, the shattered fire shield skill had not yet completely dispersed, and the halted disc had not been able to be controlled again after encountering resistance. And he had been waiting for this moment of stagnation. Now, it was his turn. Clang! 2 daggers suddenly appeared on his left and right sides. This time, the daggers looked different. With a faint tremble, a circle of pale red light appeared on their surface. Departing Fire Sword Formula. Using the sword control skill to manipulate the Wind Demon daggers, executing the Departing Fire Sword Formula, and adding the dagger's inherent wind attribute. This attack was almost half of his full strength. Go! Han Yi shouted softly, and his 2 fingers moved together. From top to bottom, a vertical downward slice. The middle-aged scholarly cultivator tens of meters away suddenly changed his expression greatly. He knew the power of the silver scale fan, but he did not expect the first strike to be dodged and the second strike to be blocked after it transformed into the second form. This caught him off guard. When Han Yi's 2 daggers, like 2 rays of light, had just appeared and were already closing into less than 3 meters, his body froze. There was no time to think. His magic power surged, forming a light wall in front of him. Defensive magic skill, light wall technique. At the same time that the light wall was formed, another hand already held 2 spiritual talismans. Without hesitation, he slapped them onto himself. 2 green rays of light emanated from the talismans and instantly spread out, forming an elliptical shield. On the surface of the shield, a green light rapidly flickered. First stage, top quality spiritual talisman, protecting body talisman, and there were 2 of them. If one had insufficient experience, they would take Han Yi's attack 1 step at a time. However, the middle-aged scholar had rich combat experience, and in an instant, he understood the power of Han Yi's move. It was definitely a terrifying trump card. Without hesitation, he used magic power to form a defensive light wall and instantly paid the price, consuming 2 first-stage, top-quality spiritual talismans, in order to ensure absolute safety. If he died, the talismans would only benefit his opponent. So in a fight, the key is to ensure survival rather than anything else. Unfortunately, he underestimated the power of Han Yi's 2 daggers, and even more so, Han Yi's experience. Whoosh! The 2 daggers did not move in parallel, instead, one led and the other followed, in a linked attack, using a focused attack to break through. Bang! The light wall instantly shattered, offering not even a moment's delay. Thud! It sounded like a sharp blade piercing into a fabric bag. The first green light shield formed by the protecting body talisman instantly shattered, and the first dagger only hesitated slightly, the pale red light on it dissipated by half. Then, the dagger pierced through the second green light shield, eventually running out of strength and falling to the ground. However, closely following behind was the second dagger. Its speed suddenly increased, and after piercing through the second green light shield, it flashed past and penetrated the middle-aged cultivator who had barely evaded but not completely moved his body. Boom! His right arm exploded at the shoulder. The middle-aged cultivator's face changed dramatically. In an instant, a 3rd spiritual talisman had appeared in his hand, ready to slap it onto his broken arm. At that moment, a flash of black light suddenly entered his vision. What is this? The middle-aged scholar was startled, but the motion to slap the talisman onto his arm did not pause. Chapter 79, Double Kill. Translator. 549,690,339. The next moment, dark light shattered his pupils, pierced into his brain, and drowned his will. The talisman that was slapped down finally landed on his broken arm, but the magical power that was about to stimulate the talisman suddenly dispersed. The talisman slightly flashed but failed to activate. Thud! A hint of bloody light came out from behind his head. His body stood in place for a full breath before it fell to the ground with a bang. This was the 3rd dagger, controlled by the departing fire sword technique, laid out in advance as one of the final moves. Han Yi did not stop his attack and pointed with his sideways finger. The first cultivator of the Blood God sect, holding the damaged Blood Soul banner, was blasted out a dozen meters away. At this moment, he suddenly opened his eyes in a state of fright. Without a second thought, he turned and fled. Dead, he's dead, Shi Heng is dead. He was one of the top cultivators in the 8th level of Qi cultivation, who could even kill the average one at the 9th level. He died like that, and the situation reversed in an instant. Initially, it looked like the disciple of the Xuanden sect was on the defensive. But merely upon meeting, Shi Heng was killed on the spot. It was terrifying, utterly terrifying. He suddenly remembered in Tianqing City, this cultivator of the Xuanden sect killed 2 7th-level Qi cultivators of the Blood God sect in less than 2 breaths. That dreadful nightmare-like feeling was just like now. I hope this expert, just like in Tianqing City, will not chase after me. The cultivator had this lucky thought, but the next moment his neck started to hurt intensely. The intense pain came quickly, and it disappeared just as rapidly, along with his consciousness. Under the night sky, in the forest, a dark light flashed. A headless corpse running wildly burst out several meters, crashing straight into a giant tree. With a crack, flesh and blood flew. The giant tree shook violently, and after about 10 breaths, the sound gradually disappeared, and silence was restored. Han Yi stood in his place, his solemn face relaxed, and he gently beckoned. The 4 daggers consecutively returned to hang before his eyes. He looked at the 2 prying daggers. They were as dark as usual, without any damage, and he was even more relieved. It's worth it that these medium-grade magic weapons were refined by a master. At least their solidity is not weaker than ordinary high-grade magic weapons. This set of magic weapons was worth buying. Then, he put away the 4 daggers. Yes, just now, he activated not 2, but all the daggers within his control. But they were not concentrated, instead they were dispersed. 2 of them attacked the middle-aged scholar directly, 1, before this, had scattered all around. When the middle-aged scholar was fully attracted and his face changed drastically, it pierced through his pupil and came out of the back of his head, completing the fatal blow. The 4th dagger was near the first cultivator, but at that time, his whole attention was on the middle-aged scholar. He did not activate this hidden trick. If the middle-aged scholar had escaped, Han Yi would not hesitate and turn this dagger to target him. In the end, the fate was that the 3rd dagger took the life of the middle-aged scholar, and the 4th dagger killed the first cultivator who turned his back to Han Yi as he ran away. Thus, the killing of 2 was over. After storing the daggers, Han Yi meticulously scanned the surroundings. After confirming there was no other life form, he quickly began cleaning up the battlefield. First, he collected the storage bags from the 3 dead cultivators, then picked up the destroyed Blood Soul banner, and the magic weapon that had lost its magical support and reverted to a folding fan into his storage bag. Next, he stripped down their inner armor, damaged or not. After confirming there was no more to collect, he quickly left. Half an hour after he had left, 3 figures appeared at this location. Looking at the horrific blood-soaked scene, the trio's brows furrowed. Junior brother Shi, junior brother Zhou, and junior brother Liang, 3 of them at the 8th level of Qi cultivation. Among them, junior brother Shi is at the 8th level of Qi cultivation. However, even if I were to confront him, I might not necessarily have the upper hand. They must be among those ranked highly in the Xuanden sect, the ones sent to the sacred Yujing mountain. Only such individuals could possess such murderous abilities. A young man analyzed the situation after examining the scene. His eyes flickered with a fierce light, not from the infuriation of the massacre of the Blood God sect disciples, but from the thrill of the hunt. The students that Xuanden sect had sent to Yujing Mountain were the main targets of their hunt this time. Being able to catch one here excited him. Senior brother Han, shall I? The Blood God sect cultivator who had just finished his analysis licked his lips and turned his head to ask the youth standing in the middle. The Blood God's child of the Blood God sect, a youth named Han Shushao, had a calm expression that seemed to flicker with confusion as he furrowed his brow. Something's not right. Zhou Dan died first, Shi Heng second, Liang Yiyang tried to escape but was killed. All 3 suffered fatal injuries to the head, which must be due to hidden weapons. Moreover, the attack was extremely fast. It's highly likely that the rival has mastered the sword control skill or the object control skill. Moreover, these skills are quite strong. Shi Heng's silver scale fan is not a common superior class magic weapon. Given Shi Heng's nature, he would have certainly detonated the silver scale fan if he realized that he couldn't resist. However, there are no fragments of his magical weapon at the scene. This person killed Shi Heng in an instant, and then easily killed Liang Yiyang who was trying to escape. There is quite a gap in the strength of the 2 sides. Moreover, there is an important issue. If it was a disciple from that group of Xuanden sect, we have a list of portraits. Shi Heng couldn't possibly have failed to recognize them. Looking at the scene, he must have felt confident when he made a move, but an accident still occurred. This indicates that the opponent is not someone from the list, but someone hidden deeper. At this point, Han Shuxiao's eyes were filled with a flicker of interest that quickly faded. If it was 5 years ago, he would have pursued and killed the person without hesitation. However, he was not a solo traveler now, but needed to oversee everything and couldn't simply leave. He gently shook his head, calculating the time. Let it be, let's go. This person is not weak and we will encounter him sooner or later. We need to prioritize the bigger picture. Let's not make unnecessary complications and stick to our plan. The young man standing nearby, who had fierce light flickering in his eyes, looked regretful but did not say anything else. The trio's figures flashed, disappearing from the location. Elsewhere, after Han Yi hid into the night, he found a hole at the base of a massive tree. He sat down inside it and closed his eyes. His breathing fluctuated a few times before gradually calming down. His heartbeat slowed down with his steady breathing until it was nearly imperceptible. Turtle breath skill. Over the years, Han Yi had honed this magic skill to the point where his control was as green as fire. With his current strength, as long as he didn't face anyone directly, he believed nobody under the Foundation establishment stage could detect him. Although it was the turtle breath skill, it didn't mean he would shut his senses off. Han Yi still had awareness of what was happening outside. I refuse to believe I am so unlucky that I will be caught again this time. With this thought, Han Yi remembered the time in Tianqing City when his turtle breath skill had been disrupted. He didn't believe it would happen again this time because if it did, it would be absurd. Chapter 80, Solemn, Translator, 549,690,339. As it turned out, Han Yi was overworried. The incident when Tianqing City was breached was indeed a low-probability event. The night passed without incident, with only distant roars of beasts and occasional, distant sounds of fighting echoing now and then. Han Yi was not a saint and remained indifferent to the battles happening outside. If Chu Jinmo or any of the still-alive members of the original 7 were nearby, he might have stepped in to help, but for those far away and unfamiliar, he could provide no assistance. As the sky was gradually brightening, he left the hollow of the tree he was hiding in, determined his direction, and quickly headed towards the periphery. With his light body technique at its peak, he estimated that a distance of over 100 kilometers would take him less than half an hour to traverse at full speed. However, no sooner had he left about 2 kilometers than he saw a body. The body was in pieces, dead with eyes wide open. Han Yi stood on the side, silent. He knew this person, one of the 7 traveling companions, the array master, Li Yi. Li Yi had left a deep impression on Han Yi, both with his concealment spirit array and the offensive formation he'd used during their battle with the tiger demon beast all evoked awe. In battles, a powerful array master could play a decisive role. Assisting, trapping enemies, defending, initiating mass attacks, these were their strengths. After spending a moment in silent mourning, Han Yi turned and left. The evil mountain range had indeed become a killing field, no place to linger. As he raced outwards, Han Yi came across 2 more bodies. One was a disciple of the Xuanden sect, his face completely disfigured by low-ranked beast bites. The other wore a blood-red robe of the blood god sect. Without stopping, Han Yi continued speeding outwards. Suddenly, boom, a violent explosion came from about half a kilometer to the side. Through the forest, Han Yi only felt an outburst of spirit energy. He stopped in his tracks, thought for a bit, decided to ignore it, and continued speeding outwards. Whoosh, a clear sword chant rose and fell quickly. Han Yi abruptly turned around, his face changing. That sword, it's Chu Jinmo's spirit sword. Without further hesitation, Han Yi headed straight towards the explosion site. He covered the half-kilometer distance in less than 10 breaths. What greeted him were 2 cultivators locked in battle. One was Chu Jinmo. Her face was stern, the dark green clothes she wore were stained with blood, and there was a tear in the sleeve of her arm revealing a deep, gravely wounded arm. The other was a robust young male cultivator, nearly 2 meters tall, with a fierce look. He held a very peculiar magical weapon, a golden-hued halberd, purely fierce like an angry deity. Just as Han Yi appeared, the man raised his golden halberd and pounded it forward. The space in front of him rippled as if water. Not good. Han Yi's face changed dramatically, and his body flickered. The next moment, Boom! Scary fluctuations of spirit energy swept out from in front of the young man, heavily slamming onto the spirit sword. The silver spirit sword let out a mournful cry, and a crack surfaced on the sword body. It was instantly blasted away. As the spirit sword suffered damage, Chu Jinmo's face turned pale white as she spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. At this moment, a hand stretched out with a palm opened wide, magic power emanating from the center of it. A shield of flames started to spread, and before it could fully form, it was shattered into firelight by the terrifying spiritual energy. However, it was this moment that Han Yi needed. For at the same moment that he cast the fire shield skill, he'd slapped 3 protecting body talismans onto himself, positioning his body to shield Chu Jinmo. This was the most direct and effective method he could think of in that split second. In the blink of an eye, there was so little time left for him. If he had slapped the protecting body talisman solely on Chu Jinmo, he wouldn't have been able to provide any defense for himself, which would undoubtedly be unwise, as he would then fall into danger, even though Chu Jinmo would be safe. If he chose not to intervene, he would have to watch Chu Jinmo die in front of his very eyes. Although Han Yi kept a low profile, he wasn't heartless. Not saving someone he could have saved would have gone against his moral principles. A cultivator who was indifferent, without any feelings, had lost the real purpose of cultivation. What were they cultivating for then? So, the most effective solution was for him to boost the spiritual talismans on his own and block this blow. In this way, both could remain unharmed. Boom, boom, 2 sharp explosions rang out. The 2 protective light cocoons that covered Han Yi shattered, and the 3rd light cocoon shook for a while but eventually stabilized. So strong. Han Yi's face was extremely serious. This burly young man had such powerful strength, definitely possessing the power of a top-notch 9th stage chi cultivator. Keep in mind, in his hurry, to ensure absolute safety, he had used all 3 protecting body talismans, which were high-grade spiritual talismans, not the common ones. Normally, a common 9th stage chi cultivator could only shatter 1 high-grade protecting body talisman with all his might. Yet this burly young man, with his golden spear, shattered not just 2 protecting body talismans with 1 heavy blow, but also broke his fire shield skill prior to that. His power was indeed terrifying. This should be the most formidable opponent he had encountered so far, even more powerful than the cold young man with the top-grade artifact, the golden light shuttle that he had met before. As his thoughts raced, the light cocoon around his body gradually disappeared. Sister Chu, how are you? Without turning his head, Han Yi laid his eyes on the burly young man 20 meters away, looking more serious than ever. Behind Han Yi, Chu Jinmo widened her eyes, her pupils shrank, and she looked at Han Yi, who had blocked the blow, with a surprised expression. But she also knew that now was not the time to discuss other matters, so she wiped the blood from her mouth and said, "I'm not dead yet, but I've lost 90% of my fighting strength." The straightforward words expressed that Han Yi was the only one who could fight from now on. Han Yi didn't feel surprised. When he arrived, Chu Jinmo was already in a hard-pressed state. The burly young man's blow had severely hit the spirit sword, which was now unable to move after being thrown out. This made it evident how heavy the damage was. "Leave the rest to me. Sister Chu, you should leave first."